If you intend to throw your hat in the ring for the day 1 or day 2 Crota's End reprised raid for the exclusive emblem and some pretty sick bragging rights, you'll need the best possible weapon and build loadouts ready in advance to guarantee success in overcoming this great challenge. With this video, I'll take the guesswork out of it for you and show you exactly what I'm bringing as an experienced day 1 raider and explain why. And if you intend to hang tight and watch some streams before you hop into the raid yourself when it releases on September 1st, I'll be live over on my stream at twitch.tv/Mactics when the raid releases to go for Worlds First. So feel free to hang out to get an idea of the raid mechanics and to ask questions before you start your run. All that said, let's get started. Now, one thing I want to clear up right away is that while loadouts are still disabled as of the making of this video, Bungie has already said that they are working on a temporary fix set to hit this week before the launch of the raid, so there shouldn't be any issues there. So, getting started with our weapons, we'll begin in the kinetic slot. The first thing that I'm bringing is Izanagi's Burden, which, if you know Crota's End, might seem a little weird because there's not really any bosses that we do a ton of DPS to with our weapons, especially Crota. We damage him with the sword. But I am pretty confident that they're going to give Crota the Oryx treatment, where they turn the mechanic that originally damaged him in D1 and turn that instead into a mechanic to enter DPS phase, whereas we'll instead do damage with our weapons to actually deplete his health bar. I think the same thing is going to happen with Crota, so I think high damage options like Izanagi's is going to be great. This is amazing with something like an auto-loading rocket, which you'll see me recommend down the line, or a reconstruction rocket, auto-loading holster, anything like that, because you can kind of cancel the reload animation. Your rocket will auto-load in the background, and you're basically always firing out like really high DPS weapons and cycling through them. So it works out really well for bursting down bosses. So that's my first pick. Number 2 I'm going to bring is Witherhoard. Witherhoard is generally just really good in a raid setting. It's really great for spawn trapping ads, placing it in front of a door. It's really solid for tanky targets if you stick them. It's really solid for large packs of squishy ads. I think it's going to be amazing in this raid, especially in the thrallway, because you can just kind of, as you're running, drop a little Witherhoard behind you and then turn around, and then all the thrall that are chasing you just kind of run through the Witherhoard and they all die. So I think it's going to be particularly great for that. If you have a tanky Swordbearer Knight or something like that, you're up to the Swordbearer Knight. Just go ahead and stick him with the Witherhoard. Really, really solid weapon option. Definitely something I'm bringing. Next thing I'm bringing is going to be any legendary submachine gun for a legendary option for close range. I have the escape velocity here. It's got threat detector and vorpal weapon. It's just something I like to use a lot. Just feels really good for me. But I mean, submission from the Vow of the Disciple raid. There's plenty of options here. Just any legendary close range weapon. Could even do a hand cannon, I guess, because they just got buffed. So if you have a legendary hand cannon that you like a lot, that would probably be fine too. But definitely you want a legendary close range option. After that, you want a legendary long range option. So probably a scout rifle. You could maybe get away with a pulse rifle here, but I definitely go with the scout rifle. For those who played D1, you'll remember that for Crota, there were some boomer knights up in the towers. So like if Crota's right out there, there were some boomer knights up in the towers, and they would shoot down on your sword bearer as you whacked Crota. And so it was really beneficial to have some long-ranged weaponry so you could toast those boomer knights to keep your sword bearer safe. Obviously, we don't know exactly how the raid is going to play out, but we can assume that there will be a lot of similarities. Having a long-range option that is legendary, won't take up your exotic slot, is going to be really solid. I personally love the Night Watch. I think it's the best scout rifle in the entire game. Hung Jury can work as well. Pretty much whatever you have. Looking at special weapon options, though, for close range and long range, I absolutely love the Heritage. Any slug shotgun will do, really, but the Heritage from the Deepstone Crypt is by far one of my favorite shotguns in the entire game, even one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. It's craftable now, too. I don't have the crafted version because I got a really good roll back when the raid released, but something like Recombination, Reconstruction, Assault Mag, Fluted Barrel, and Handling, it's just super solid for absolutely nuking tanky targets. And you know, I know we said Witherhoard was good for that, but this is a legendary option, not going to take your exotic slot. And so, for example, if you're maybe the sword bearer and you don't want to waste your exotic slot on Witherhoard, so you run up to the sword bearer, you can just pop a few heritage shots in him and it'll smoke him. So love bringing that on board. Always proves to be very useful. Also, in the same Deepstone Crypt family, I love to bring a legendary sniper. I love Succession as my favorite sniper in the game. But really any sniper will do. Perks like Vorpal Weapon, Reconstruction, stuff like that. Same kind of idea as the Night Watch. So it's going to be your special legendary weapon alternative for smoking tanky targets. So, you know, let's talk about those knights and those towers. Maybe in the bridge encounter, you want to shoot an ogre from far away. Maybe in the abyss encounter, the first one, you want to shoot an ogre from far away. This will serve you perfectly well for that. Other two weapons we have are Quicksilver Storm and Monte Carlo. And these ones are build specific. So these aren't like general purpose weapons I'm bringing, but I'm bringing them because I think they'll pair very nicely with some specific class builds. So we'll talk about these two weapons when we get to those class builds. And if you don't intend to run any of those builds no matter what, then you can just kind of omit these two. You're left with anywhere from 2 to 4 slots left to fill. So it's kind of up to you. You can bring whatever weapons you typically like using. These are my recommendations though. These are the staples. I would definitely try and make sure you're hitting all of these categories. You don't have to bring these weapons specifically, but as I talked about each weapon, I kind of explained what niche it fit. And so you definitely want a weapon that fits each one of those niches, be it it's a legendary weapon, it's long range, it's close range, it's special, it's primary ammo, etc. Moving on to the energy weapon section, we have a lot less stuff we need to bring here. Let's get the elephant out of the room real quick, talk about Divinity. I do not think that Divinity is going to be used in this raid, but I think you're kind of crazy if you walk into a day one raid without at least one person on your fire team with Divinity in their inventory. I think that we're probably going to use rockets for this raid, and I don't really think Divinity is going to be useful because not only do I think we're going to use rockets, but I think we're probably going to be pretty close range to Crota, and I think there's a good chance Crota is going to be immobile or stunned while we're DPSing him, so you're probably not going to need like a crit bubble to be able to easily hit those precision shots if you're doing like the Izanagi's rocket swaps and whatnot. It's always good to have at least one. Obviously, it's probably the hardest exotic weapon in the entire game to get, so luckily not everyone on your team needs one, so if you're lacking one, it's completely okay. Just try and make sure that at least one of your teammates brings it. And if not a single one of your 6 teammates has it, if no one in your fire team owns the weapon, I honestly still think you'll be fine. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I would bring it if you do have it. Elephant in the room number 2 is the glaive. The only reason I'm bringing the glaive is strictly for the first encounter. If we remember the first encounter in D1, we know that it's kind of all about, you know, slowing you down and a bunch of thrall chasing you, a bunch of curse thrall blowing up on you. If you play the Lightblade Strike, it functions basically the exact same way as that, where you get the weight of darkness when you're not near the lanterns, and it'll decrease your sprint speed, it'll decrease your walking speed, it'll prevent you from jumping. So I really love the idea of having a glaive, because if you get too slow, or if the thrall are catching up to you, or if you're jumping and you see a big pack of curse thrall, you know, you have a little bit of ammo charged up. I can't do it because I don't have a... Does it work on this? No, it does not work on that. But obviously when you shoot, you get the shield energy, and so if you're like, oh no, I'm in a tight spot, a bunch of thrall are jumping at me, boom, you just hit a quick block, pretty much immune to all their explosions, you'll be good to go. It's the only reason I'm bringing a glaive. Probably won't use it outside of that. Next up is Forbearance. I know Forbearance is a raid weapon, so it's a little bit tougher to get than some of the other weapons on this list, but it is genuinely like in the conversation for best legendary weapon in the entire game. When you craft it, this is my exact crafted roll. If you have the materials to do this and you have it leveled up, I'd highly recommend. I go quick launch, high velocity rounds. It's a reload speed frame. I don't think it says it here, but it is bonus reload speed. And then Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction. If you can't get the enhanced perks, it's completely okay. I just do it because it masterworks it, gives it that little bit of a bonus stat. But if you can't get the enhanced ones, it's completely okay. But these 2 perks, this thing is going to be insane for the first encounter. Shoot one bullet, it'll probably nuke every single thrall that's looking at you. It'll probably do that through the entire raid. Hive are a notoriously squishy race. The Acolytes are pretty squishy, the Thrall are pretty squishy, and even the Knights comparatively to some of the other like enemies of their tier and other races, like, you know, you compare them to Minotaurs or whatever, Knights are a little squishy too. It's great too, because if you damage them and they put up their healing shields, hit them with a quick Forbearance, it'll go under the shield and get them. It's just overall an amazing weapon for clearing dense packs of enemies, which is what you're going to see in a lot of Hive raids. So this is a must-have if you have it. If not, just try to find a Waveframe grenade launcher and bring it with you. Other than that, 3 primary ammo SMGs. I've got an Arc one, a Void one, and a Solar one. These are my 3 favorite ones. Callus is made to it for Solar. This is the crafted one, so here's my crafted roll if you want to take a screenshot of it. I'm 99% sure it doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure it's the reload speed frame. This is my Icolos SMG. It's actually the V1.0.2. It's not the craftable third version that became available in Season of the Seraph, I want to say, because that version cannot have Demolitionist on it. I believe it can still have Threat Detector, so if you don't have this V102 with this exact roll, which it's unlikely you do, just do the V103 one with maybe Threat Detector and maybe Volt Shot, I would say, and you can use that when you're running Arc subclass if you do. And then Funnel Web for the Void. Obviously, this one's not craftable, but any roll with like a damage perk and a ammo refunding or fast reload perks like Subsistence, Perpetual Motion would be fine. Or, and again, if you have like an Unforgiven from Duality, you don't have to necessarily use Funnel Web, but like your favorite Void SMG or Void close range weapon, could do Void hand cannon too. Favorite solar close range weapon and favorite arc close range weapon. Finally, we have heavy weapons. First thing I want to talk about, similar to Divinity in the sense that you only need one person on your fire team to have it, but not similar to Divinity in the sense that like I'm calling this a must-have. Do not walk into this raid unless one person on your fire team has Gallahorn. Please, 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 because we are currently in a rocket DPS meta. If my theories are correct that we're going to damage Crota with actual weapons as opposed to strictly the Crota sword, which I think is 99.9% likely, we're probably going to use rockets. Rockets are probably going to be the best thing for damaging him because they're the strongest DPS meta in the game right now. And Gallahorn is going to buff your raid-wide damage by like a total of like 24% or something crazy like that if all 5 of your other teammates are using rockets. So please, one person minimum has to bring Gallahorn. In that same vein, legendary rocket as well for the other 5 members. Just bring your favorite one. This is the best one in the game in my personal opinion. It is farmable from the Last Wish. So if you don't have this yet, it is currently the Last Wish raid is the featured weekly raid. So you can see right here it's dropping Pinnacle Gear, which means it is farmable and it will drop red borders. So you can spam the first encounter with your day 1 team or LFG or any group of friends if you need people to do this with. If you go into my LFG server in the Discord server, you just click the link down below. It'll be in the description. I'll just title it like my Discord server. You can click the link. There's an LFG channel in there, and you can probably find other people who are watching this exact same video right now who also need to farm out this rocket for Crota's End and hop into a fire team with them and go farm it and go spam Cali kills to get the red borders. Bait and switch, best DPS perk in the game. Reconstruction, this will let you, it acts as auto-loading holster, but it's like a better version because it'll let you overflow to 2 rockets. Impact casing, it's like a 2% overall damage buff, why not? Quick launch, and then you'll obviously do boss spec on it, right? For the frame, you might think you want to do handling because you'll probably think that the idea with this rocket, right, is if we're pairing it with Izanagi's, then we want to kind of shoot our Izanagi's, reload, shoot that to proc bait and switch, and then boom, there's bait and switch with that. You probably think we want handling because, oh, then we can get back to the rocket right away. But I noticed that with the handling masterwork, it actually makes you pull out the rocket a little too early. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see do my 2, and then go back to Izzy's, shoot, pull out the rocket, and I'm spamming left click. Because I spammed left click, it tried to immediately shoot the rocket, and instead it reloaded the rocket, even though it was like 0.2 seconds away from reloading it. So you actually want to avoid handling masterwork. Instead, you probably want to do like a velocity masterwork, because I noticed that it messes up the timing of your swaps, and so it kind of punishes you for being extremely efficient. So it's better to just not go the handling masterwork, because then you avoid ever getting yourself in a situation where you accidentally hit left click or pull the trigger and it reloads it instead of shooting. So I mean, you can ignore me on that one, but that's what I found worked best for me. So up to you. Next up, Eager Edge Sword. This is literally just for the first encounter. Should be pretty self-explanatory what the point of this is. If you have Weight of Darkness times 10, can't sprint, whatnot, boom, you just do that. If you're at times 10 though, I guess you can't jump, so you just gotta do that. But if you're at anything, you know, times 1 to times 9, you can still do a little bunny hop, hit that, getting through there a little bit safer, a little easier. LMG, this is for any non-boss encounter, so just solid for ad clear, pretty self-explanatory. You can bring your favorite one. I love Commemoration. If you want to bring a solar one as well, you could do like Fixed Odds. If you wanted to do an arc one, you could do like Terminus Horizon Terminus, whatever it's called from Spire of the Watcher Dungeon, up to you. In the slight possibility that we are able to damage Crota with swords, and swords end up being good if you have like a Banner of War Titan on your team, we'll talk about that in a bit. Bring in Lament, just because I really like Lament for sword DPS. Also worth noting, if you do have Lament, you'll make sure you want to have Loosened Blades. And I believe the combo is you hold block, 1, 2, swing, 2 light attacks, back to block, 1, 2, swing. Sorry, that's a little fast. I'm going to break that down a little bit. So it's going to be hold block, you're going to do 2 swings while in the block form. Then you're going to hit the heavy attack to do the heavy. And then you're going to do 2 light attacks regular without blocking, which is going to allow Loosened Blades to recharge your heavy. Additionally, if you hold a movement key while you do it, it'll pull you back into the block animation a lot earlier, so you can just get better DPS. So, like, for example, if I don't hold any movement keys, it looks something like this. See how it takes so long to get back up there? Whereas if I do hold a movement key, if I hold, like, back pedal, for example, see how it kind of comes right back up? So, yeah. 2-1-2 combo is what I like to call it. I think it's the best combo for maximizing ammo and DPS at the same time. So that's why I talked about that. Other than that, Tractor Cannon, if we're close range, definitely going to be nice to have one guy run that. You can have like the someone on Tractor Cannon with like a heritage, perhaps. Tractor Cannon guy can reload this real quick. But or if you have someone who knows how to double slug, you can do that. But not necessary. But Tractor Cannon, boom. That way no one has to do Divinity or something like that. Probably not going to get used, but it's like one of those things where it just feels wrong to enter a raid without Tractor Cannon. So that is every single weapon. Let's go over artifact perks, and then we'll go over all the classes built. The artifact perks don't really matter that much this season. They're not like insanely strong. So if you don't have enough XP to unlock some in the later column, like I don't even yet, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like don't think that you're screwed. But if you can, might as well, right? The notable ones, I would say, are Diviner's Discount. All Scavenger mods are discounted. Makes it easier to stuff more mods into your boots and pick up more rockets per ammo brick or whatever heavy weapon you're using. These in the third column, depending on what subclass you're using, just, mix and match. If you're using Strand, Thanatotic Tangles. If you're using Void, Arc, or Solar, then the respective Elemental Orbs one. Great season to be a Stasis enjoyer. I love that Bungie loves Stasis. How, this one could have been a Stasis one. I'm just saying, but, whatever. In the fourth column, communal pickups. If you have someone on your team using any of these, which you should, so definitely run communal pickups. And then refreshing pickups as well. It's kind of like one of those why not things. Not really necessary, but why not? In the final column, you can only pick 2. So I would go Elemental Munitions. And the best one on the entire artifact, in my opinion, is Monochromatic Maestro. Gives your abilities some bonus damage. This is the only one that I think is like actually legitimately good. Because if it's going to be boosting your super damage or your grenade damage, for example, that could really help with boss DPS. The only other one to consider is Rapid Fire Ranger. Rapid precision hits against distant combatants weaken them for a short duration. I don't think this one is going to be used, and quite frankly, I don't even know if it stacks with other debuffs. So if it doesn't stack with other debuffs, it's going to be useless. But it could be potentially worthwhile to have one person run this from range if you're a DPS and boss. I think like 99%, I doubt it, but it could be something to keep in mind. I would probably just stick with this one and Elemental Munitions. If you do find that Rapid Fire Ranger would be useful though, drop Elemental Munitions for it. Make sure you have Monochromatic Maestro if available, no matter what. Now, before we go over all the class-specific builds, all of the exotic armor pieces, fragments, aspects, and whatnot that you're going to want to use, I do want to briefly mention the build help channel in my Discord server. If you're not already in my Discord server, it's linked in the description. This channel is fantastic if you have any questions about build stuff or really any Destiny stuff in general, but primarily for build stuff because that's what my community is centered around. So if you're trying to put together a build or you hear one of my builds that I go over in this video right now and you have a question about it, you're not sure if maybe a certain fragment would be a better replacement, you don't know what mods to use in what situation, I told them I would be recording in here, so everyone in the channel is saying hi to y'all on YouTube. But you can come in here at literally any time, post your question. People from the community will answer. Like and subscribe. Great call. But people in here will answer your questions. I'll even be in here answering people's questions about builds. So this is a great resource to use for not only this upcoming day 1 raid, but just at any time in your Destiny career. We got the Build Help channel, the LFG channel, like I mentioned before as well, if you're looking for a day 1 team or if you're looking for a team to farm that rocket I mentioned previously. So again, link in the description. Highly recommend you join this so that you can have all your build questions answered. With that being said, let's go ahead and go over all of the class-specific builds. And before we begin with the hunter-specific builds, I want to talk about general mod choices for all the classes, because I'm not going to talk about the specific mod setup for every single class. So I just want to talk about the general mindset that goes into what mods you want to pick for a day one situation. Generally speaking, you're going to want to go for things that boost your weapon DPS for boss DPS phases and things that allow you to maintain stacks of armor charge to fuel those DPS boosts. So things like surges, if my heavy weapon, for example, is solar, I'll go some solar weapon surges. I'm going to want a lot of mods to generate orbs to get stacks to get those surges. So stuff like siphons, heavy-handed, stuff like Reaper, and then things to make those stacks last longer, like time dilation. You'll also want things that will restore the abilities that you like to use most in a build. So for example, say this whatever build we're running, say we love grenades on it, right? Impact inductions, things like bomber, all that good stuff. So just go into your build with that mindset, think, hey, what are the things I want to prioritize here? Okay, I want to prioritize boss DPS. I want to prioritize having a lot of ammo, right? Okay, I'll go heavy ammo finder. I'll go surges. I'll go ways to get armor charge stacks, et cetera, et cetera. And once again, like I said, that build help channel, if you're kind of stuck on something or you just want someone to double check and reaffirm like, hey, yeah, that looks good for your purposes, then go ahead and post it in there. So beginning with the hunter, we're going to talk about Void. We've got Omnioculus and kind of an Orpheus rig hot swap. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But the Omnioculus build, I think, is so amazing for surviving in day one activities and game activities. I think it's going to be especially amazing for the first encounter, assuming that there's no shenanigans that Bungie pulls that, makes this build useless. If they make it so it's impossible to go invisible or something, I have no idea. It'd be hilarious if that ended up being the case and we come back to this video like, oh. For the Omnioculus build, you can either go Deadfall or Mobius Tether. Deadfall is nicer for just kind of slapping the tether on a boss and debuffing it and just kind of not worrying about using your super anymore. But Mobius is a little bit better burst damage because the arrows themselves are going to do more damage than Deadfall. And if you hot swap to Orpheus right before a DPS phase, so let's say you're using Omnioculus and right before you go to the DPS phase, you're like, okay, I'm going to take off Omnioculus, throw on Orpheus, then you get 3 Mobius shots, which means not only are they going to last, I think, as long as Deadfall for the debuff, but they're definitely going to out DPS Deadfall a lot because you're shooting 3 separate bursts. So something to consider there. That's what I meant when I was talking about Orpheus, by the way. For the rest of the build, you could go Deadfall if you don't really want to worry about all that hassle. For the rest of the build, Gambler's Dodge, we've got Vortex Grenade, Trapper's Ambush, Vanishing Step, and then for the fragments, I like Obscurity, Starvation, Persistence, and Harvest. I think that's the best move for that. Gerfalcons is also an option. For Gerfalcons, I'm literally running the exact same thing, same mindset as well, so you could run Mobius if you want to do that Orpheus rig hot swap as you're going into a DPS phase. Otherwise, maybe just stick with Deadfall. But literally everything is identical, same fragments, same abilities. The only thing I'm changing is I'm swapping Vanishing Step for Stylish Executioner. That's literally it. Those are going to be the 2 best kind of invis builds, in my opinion, for day one. Definitely have those locked in your loadout section when they do re-enable loadouts. Next up, we have Solar Hunter, which is operating under the same mindset as the Void stuff, where we kind of have an exotic for more general purpose, general use, and then we'll swap to an exotic that will do much better damage in a boss DPS phase. Of course, talking about Young Ahamkara's Spine for the general purpose exotic, and then swapping to Star Eater Scales. I don't have one in my inventory right now because I'm dumb and I left it in the vault, but Young Ahamkara's Spine, Star Eater Scales. Obviously, you'll want to swap to Star Eaters a little bit earlier than you would swap to Orpheus, because on Star Eaters you need to collect 4 orbs, I think it is, but same idea in general practice. But Young Ahamkara's Spine also puts out some pretty nice boss DPS as well from all the trip mine spam and all of the procs of Ember of Ashes, all the ignitions. So here I like Blade Barrage, Gambler's Dodge, Knife Trick, and then we've got a Trip Mine Grenade, On Your Mark and Knock them down for aspects, and then we've got Torches, Solace, Singeing, Benevolence, and Ashes. Additionally, for the Hunter, we have Arc as an option, which is great for general purpose, ad clear, general purpose encounters, and for boss DPS as well. Same exact idea as the Solar, where we kind of have a general purpose exotic in Assassin's Cal, and then just like for Solar, Star Eater Scales, swap to it a little earlier before DPS phase, pick up some orbs to power up your super. Don't have Star Eater Scales like I said, but you get the idea. For the actual build stuff, Gathering Sword for the super, Gambler's Dodge, Combination Blow, Pulse Grenade, then Lethal Current, Flow States, and then for fragments, we got Feedback, Resistance, Shock, and Magnitude. Now, the last Hunter build I want to talk about is the Lucky Pants Hunter build, and I have a whole fleshed out, really well made, detailed build video on this releasing 24 hours after I release this video. So if you're watching this one early, make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button to my channel so you don't miss the Lucky Pants Hunter build video. I think that could also potentially be a very viable build, especially with the buffs to hand cannons that we received this patch. That'll be Sunday at noon Eastern time zone, so just keep your eye out for that. That could also be a great one to bring in. Now, for Warlock, we only have 3 builds. I'm going to start with my favorite one that unfortunately we actually can't use in the game right now because it involves the Weavewalk aspect, which Bungie has disabled. Now, I'm pretty sure that they only need to do a minor fix to it, and I'm 99% sure it's going to be re-enabled before the day 1 World's First race. I think it'd be crazy if we weren't allowed to use the brand new aspect. So I'm pretty confident they're going to have it re-enabled, so we're going to talk about this build. I'm also going to have a build video fully fleshed out, same way I'm going to have a Lucky Pants one. Actually, the build video for this was supposed to go out today in place of this video I'm making right now, but I'm holding off on it until they re-enable that aspect so you guys can have fun with it right when I release it. But another great reason to subscribe so you don't miss that when it comes out. But we'll talk about it right now too. Swarmer's Exotic Boots, which are great for both AoE ad clear and single target damage because all of your threadlings put so much unravel on the boss, which really compounds to do a pretty decent amount of damage. Threadlings do some pretty decent damage too. But yep, definitely going with the Threadlings. Needle Storm, obviously the only super option, but I think it's the best Warlock burst super by far. So Needle Storm is fantastic for bursting bosses. Got Healing Rift, Threadling, Grenade, Weaver's Call, and then Weavewalk, of course, currently disabled, but let's hope it's good to go by the time the raid comes out. And then Fragments, we got Evolution, Fury, and Generation. And this is the build that specifically I had Quicksilver Storm and Monte Carlo in my weapon slots. Both of those weapons pair really well with this build, as you'll see when my build video comes out. So if you plan to play Warlock and you plan to bring this build into the raid, then I would highly consider having those weapons by your side. You'll see why in my build video if you end up catching that. Next Warlock build we have is a Solar Warlock, and I highly recommend, similar to Galahorn, that you have a minimum of one of these in your fire team. Going into a day 1 raid without at least one Well of Radiance is kind of crazy in my opinion, so please bring at least one. You have 2 exotic options for this. You can go Sun Bracers if you want to go the more damage route, or if you want to empower your fire team to do significantly more weapon damage during a DPS phase because they can reload faster, you can go Lunafaction Boots instead. I'd probably go Sun Bracers for like 99% of the raid and maybe pull out the Lunafaction if, you know, maybe you have like a bunch of field prep rockets or something like that. A lot of your teammates don't have auto loading or reconstruction or something like that. For the subclass, we got Well of Radiance, Healing Rift, Incinerator Snap, Solar Grenade if you're on the Sun Bracers. If you're on Lunafaction, you can use any grenade. I'd probably go Fusion instead, or Healing Grenade even if you want to. And then Heat Rises and Touch of Flame for the aspects, and Torches, Benevolence, Ashes, and Solace for the fragments. The only other Warlock build I would recommend that you might want to use is the newly updated Geomags build if you're working with boss DPS, or you could even go an Arc Fallen Sunstar build as well, both of which I have build videos for on my channel. I'll link them both in the description, so you can go ahead and check those out really easily. Finally, we have Titan. First, we're going to talk about the boss burst damage build that we have available to us, which is going to be Arc Titan with Heart of Inmost Light on during the general ad clearing intermission phases, swapping to Curious of the Falling Star right when you enter DPS phase, similar to like how we talked about for Hunter with Omnioculus and Falcon swapping to Orpheus and things of that nature. Regardless of which exotic you're running, which phase you're in, Thunder Crash for the super, Thruster for the class ability. You can go Thunderclap or Shoulder Charge, Seismic Strike. Sorry, I'm calling it Shoulder Charge. It's Shoulder Charge, but I like Thunderclap a little better. Pulse Grenade, Knockout, Touch of Thunder, and the Sparks of Resistance, Shock, Amplitude, and Magnitude. Like I said earlier, though, I think there is a possibility that we are going to be able to use swords to damage the boss. And if that is the case, you'll definitely want to go and experiment with the new Titan aspect that buffs melee and sword damage and really gets juiced up when you involve Syntheseps into the mix, because you're going to be getting a lot of damage from your sword, getting a lot of damage from your super as well. So Syntheseps for the exotic, like I said, only one super available, Blade Fury, but I like to go Rally Barricade here. You can use any grenade you want. I think Grapple is kind of nice for better mobility since you're playing like a melee based build. It's nice to have high mobility with the Grapple Grenade and get to target quickly or something of that nature, so you don't have to sprint up to them, but up to you. If you'd rather go a different grenade, totally fine. I think Shackle could work fine too, even though Suspend did just get nerfed. But Aspects, Banner of War, undoubtedly, and then I like Fletchet Storm a lot as a pairing. You could maybe go into the Fray if that sounds better for you. I personally like Fletchet a little bit better. And for Aspects, we've got Warding, Fury, Generation, and I don't have it unlocked yet, need to go buy it, but Transmutation will be the next best fragment to run right here. Finally for Titan, we have like the Ultra Survival monster ad clearing one, which is going to be our Solar Titan. Still on Syntheseps, but it's the classic Throwing Hammer Bonk Titan. Hammer of Soul or Burning Maul, it's kind of up to you. I don't think it makes much of a difference. I like Hammer of Soul better personally, but up to you, like I said. Rally Barricade, Throwing Hammer. Healing Grenade, if you feel like you need the extra healing, probably will into day one, so I'd take healing just to be safe. Then we've got Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus for our Aspects, and Ember of Torches, Solace, Ashes, and Benevolence for our fragments. And that is absolutely everything that I am bringing into the raid. Hopefully it helped. Consider subscribing if it did. Don't want to take any more of your time. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in my stream on day one to cheer us off for Worlds First. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.